Hello, Wellness Wednesday email subscribers. My name is Tyler. This is Asia. And this week we'll be discussing test taking strategies that might help you with any exams you might have coming up. We're counseling and psychological services, or CAPS for abbreviation sake, mental health and wellness peer educators. So let's get right into it. Maybe you'll find some usefulness in these tips and strategies, or maybe not, but hopefully you will. Oh, next slide here. Yeah, so we'll be going over what makes exams and test taking in general a challenge to some extent, some common mistakes you might encounter in yourself, or maybe you've heard of other people dealing with these types of things in terms of taking an exam, and what makes it a bit more challenging than perhaps it should be, depending on how it's set up, as well as some tips and strategies that might help you in your test prep and taking processes, and some additional resources that might help you further outside of what we're discussing here if it's not sufficient. So I'm sure we're all aware that exams can be a bit stressful, and and when you're anticipating an exam coming up, you might be worried or having some anxiety about it, and that's not something that's very beneficial in terms of having you get as high a score as you possibly can, which is what of course you would probably want. And when you're preparing for an exam, it's best to stay focused in a calm sort of way. Just try not to worry about the score too much, which sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but it's a little bit more important to focus on the learning material and making sure you understand it, rather than just trying to have a high score, which of course is also important for your grades, GPA and whatnot. But it is a bit more important that you actually learn something, as of course you're paying tuition and whatnot. It's kind of expensive, and of course you want to have a high quality education. So just try to have the learning come first. I would say, even though it seems like a lot of focus is on the grades, which makes things a bit complicated, but it's just best to make sure you are getting something out of it as well. So there's going to be some things that might make an exam more difficult to take, depending on how it's set up, like I said before. And there are some strategies that might help you in terms of preparing and making sure that you are ready for what the exam's covering and how it goes about testing your knowledge and what you've learned in your course materials. So we'll be going over some tips and strategies, things that make tests difficult, and things that might help you further, and of course some additional resources. So of course, exams are hard, and I feel like that's on purpose, because they're meant to test your knowledge, and if you're following along with course material and that you're learning something that you didn't previously know. And they might be testing multiple aspects of knowledge and how you apply what you've learned, maybe through rote memorization, or you have to think critically about something, or come up with an entirely new concept that has some vague basis in the core concepts that you've been learning. But it's best to keep your learning process and studying habits a bit well-rounded if possible, unless things are a bit more focused in one direction of learning than another. But in many cases, you might want to try thinking about the same concepts in different ways, and hopefully that'll help you get a fuller, deeper understanding of what is being covered, and that you know what's going on. And if not, of course, you could always, even if you've done all the types of studying and preparation that you can think of, you could always go to office hours with your professors. There's tutors you can go to. There's resources online. There's resources on campus. There's ways you can learn stuff the best of your abilities. Just try to keep your studying a bit well-rounded, and not just focus on memorizing stuff or vaguely understanding the gist and big picture type stuff. And of course, keep in mind, if you only have a limited time to take an exam, you might want to uh, realize, how much time you have, and to try not to stress about it. Of course, you don't want to not have questions answered, so you want to get through everything, but just try to do some mental math quickly in your head. It's based on types of questions, how many questions there are, how long it might take, and how much time you can dedicate to each question. And then make sure you fully read the instructions, because if you misread that, then you might mess up several questions. So it's best to make sure you know what is being asked of you from the get-go. And, if there's something that you might not fully understand even after studying for an exam, and there's several questions that are like that, try to maybe look further into the exam if it allows you to. See if there's clues that might help you go back and realize what is being asked and how you might better understand it. And of course, if you answer a question and you're a bit confident about it at first, then it might not be a good idea to change your answer, because if you second guess yourself, you might end up getting it wrong when you had it right in the first place. So keep that in mind as well. And now pass off to Asia, going over tips and resources and all that stuff.
All right. So now we're going to talk about tips. Um, these are just going to be different ways that um, that can help students succeed on their exams. So
Oh,
moving on from
Control, I need to, there we go.
It's okay. So, tip one, make sure that you're attending classes. Okay. A lot of these tips are going to be talking about the process before you take the exam, because that's a big part of the process. You want to make sure that you're having good study habits. So, attending class is important. You want to make sure that you're taking notes, you're asking questions, that you're collaborating possibly with different students, because then you're getting different ideas, you're getting different minds helping you out, asking questions. I know it's sometimes scary or intimidating to talk to your professor, but it can really help you. And then also making sure that you're taking notes, that you're understanding that information. It's really important. So make sure that you're attending class.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, otherwise your tuition dollars go to waste. You don't want that.
Yes.
Please get the most out of, your education as you can.
For sure. Also, make sure that you're practicing before the test. I recommend practicing in a distraction free environment. So, making sure you're doing your assignments, doing an additional research or additional practice problems. It can really help you ingrain that information into your mind. Using flashcards can also be beneficial, or any other study methods that may benefit you. Sometimes watching different videos is helpful, or doing like just practicing through different problems. You can also attend SI if that section has an SI instructor. And they can help you just also with practice problems, understanding a topic that you may not understand prior to that. Just there are so many different resources that can help you build up those skills before you take the exam. Also, studying with friends, which can also be done with SI, or even attending office hours to ask your professor a question. These are just ways that can help you practice before you actually go to your test or exam. Also, make sure you're getting enough rest beforehand. Fatigue can really affect your performance. I know it's hard right now because you have so many different assignments, you have projects and everything, but getting enough rest is really important, and it can really perfect your performance. It can affect your memory. And please make sure that you're not cramming beforehand. Um, Really, when you're plugging in all that information, a lot of times it doesn't really stick. And I know that a lot of us have probably seen that in the past, trying to cram before a test and seeing that that information really doesn't stick in there. So it's really important to try to make sure that you're getting enough rest, that you're practicing beforehand, but you give yourself enough time to actually um, get that information understood. All right, so tip number 4, make sure that you're reading questions carefully. So this is actually talking about on your test or exam. Make sure that you're reading the whole entire question. You read all of the answer choices. I know sometimes you may feel like, oh yeah, this question fits, but it's good to make sure that you're reading all your options just in case that um, you know it might not be the actual solution. Also, make sure that you're taking your time. As Tyler was saying earlier, it's good to know how much time you may have on the test, and then you can map out how much time that you'll need on each question, and then you can take your time because you don't want to like be rushing yourself, and then you end up making mistakes. So make sure you're taking deep breaths. Sometimes I get testing anxiety, and so I know sometimes certain students may have that as well. So it's good to take your time, take deep breaths, pace yourself, and know that you can do this. And you can also return a question later on if you like to. So if that is allowed by that professor. So if so, then I think that you should take that opportunity to answer the questions that you know first, and then you can return to questions that you may not know later on. So, as I was saying just a minute ago, answer the questions you know first. It helps you remember certain information. So sometimes certain questions are related. You're like, oh, yeah, I remember this from this topic. I remember this from this section. And going through that, that may help you understand information for a question you may not have remembered prior. And so you answer the questions you know first, and you can answer the ones you know afterward if you're allowed to skip around. And it's good not to skip questions as well. If you're able to like, if they're all like multiple choice, it's good to fill them all in just to make sure you can get the most points possible. Or if you have a fill in the blank, or you have a short response or a free response, it's good to answer all the questions just to make sure you can get as many points possible, even if it's incorrect. It's okay. It's just good to make sure you're putting your answer out there because you don't know, maybe you can get the right answer.
Yeah, and if it's like a short response thing, if you put like anything remotely similar to what's being asked, you might at least get a couple points or something
Right.
better than not putting anything at all.
Also, make sure that you're checking your work. So maybe if you have some time after the exam, maybe like 5 minutes, the teacher gives a 5 minute warning. You can check through your answers and see if maybe you made a mistake here and there, or maybe you missed a question here, or maybe something doesn't match your scantron. Then you can just check your work and make sure that everything's correct. Then you can fix any past mistakes. But as Tyler was saying before, it's also good to make sure that if you like answered a question before, sometimes your first choice is that actual answer. So don't second guess yourself too much, but it is beneficial to be able to fix your past mistakes. So checking your work is important as well. And then make sure that you're just trying your best. Sometimes it's hard out here. We're trying to be the best students that we can, but all that studying is going to pay off in the long run. So just make sure that you're doing your best.
Yeah. All you can do.
Yeah. All right. So here's some additional resources that can help students as well. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have the Math Learning Center, we have the Science Learning Center, the Writing Center. There's SI, and there's also office hours. These are all resources that basically that you pay for with your tuition, and so they're all resources that can help you though. I know I've gone to the Math Learning Center multiple times to receive help on different problems. I've gone to my teacher's office hours to receive help, and they'll really break down that problem for you. Like, and it's a little scary at first being able to come out of your comfort zone and talk to a professor, talk to somebody you may not know, but it's really beneficial, and it can help you understand that topic that you may have some trouble with. So using these resources is really important. You can also get help from different classmates. I know sometimes teach different classmates may make group chats, and sometimes you may send problems in there and receive help in there. That's also a really beneficial way. There's just a lot of different ways that you can receive help um, for maybe if you're having trouble in a course. And this is also our campus resources guide. So if you need any other resources or any links to any resources, it can be here. Also, as we say before, we are with CAPS. We are mental health peer educators, and so we're located in the RUC, which is our university center. We're located there, and that is our email and our phone number. So if you need any assistance, maybe if you want counseling or just anybody to talk to at any point, then you can reach us. So, yeah. And thank you. Thank you for listening to our presentation. If you have any questions, you can let us know. And yeah, all right.
Thank you. Hopefully this was useful.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good week, everyone. Bye.
Have a great one.